Hi, Laurie. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So the first question, can you please tell us about your career before Innovation Works and what you learned along the way?
Yeah, sure. I'm I guess my background primarily was corporate Canada. I worked for one of the major telecommunication companies for 25 years until they decided that I didn't need to be working for them anymore. And at the same time, I had my fingers in a nonprofit. So I was managing a nonprofit. So I kind of had a sense of nonprofit. I also managed the mental health campaign as well at that telecommunications company. So I was already very prone to that environment. And so I was in corporate communications. So I loved project management, but I didn't like budgets. So communications came very natural for me. And I also am a fitness instructor. So as I was teaching fitness, my one of the regulars ran Pillar nonprofit, and when this job opportunity came up, the stars aligned, and I picked it up, and I became the coach of social enterprise at Pillar Nonprofit Network. And then after that, when we purchased a shared space and the project was over and it was moving to operations, I was offered the position as director of the shared space. So that's kind of how I started in these shoes.
Okay, so what exactly does the director do at the Pillar?
Well, the Pillar Nonprofit Network owns this 32,000 square foot building, and my role as director of operations and innovation works is basically to manage the physical operations. So I have a small team that we manage, everything from, I always say it, from toilets to strategy. So how do you keep the place physically active, but also how do you create it as a community, which is really the spirit of Pillar, and how it was created was kind of this bond between, or this bridge between government, private, and nonprofits. How do we keep those moments alive and intersection points alive? And innovation, social innovation, was really the impetus to make that glue happen in a stronger way.
And what excites you about your job?
You know, what what has become really illuminated for me is that connection to people. It's especially now that we're in a situation where we're not accessing the space due to the environment that we're in right now. Even more than never ever is that connection to the people and the ideas that have been coming out, and the unlikely connections that have happened. And there's an energy about that community. And I used to say the bricks breathe, but you know, not being in the bricks for a while, just again illuminated the fact that it's the people, it's those connections that have really made put breath into our community.
How would you define a shared office space and Innovation Works?
So it's a model that we adapted from the Center for Social Innovation in Toronto. They have 3 buildings, and theirs is it's a very Toronto based solution. When we created this space in London, Ontario, we knew that we had to make it a London based solution. So we did a lot of collaboration, community collaboration, before we began, and we had to kind of understand what does our community need, what is the essence of London, and what needs to happen here. So while our business model was based on CSI, certainly the community model was based on what the community asked for. And after years of community consultation, a shared space kind of came up to the top. And so I think one of our differentiators, probably our key differentiator, is that we have dedication to animating the space. So along with pillars programming, what things can we do intentionally to bring different aspects, different skill set, different community connections together to help solve some of our most pressing issues in the community. And so those animation activities have been everything from salad club to nonprofit meetups to workshops to health and wellness. It's amazing what you can draw when you put the right dish in front of people.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the building, how did you settle? Did you in terms of acquiring the building, did you set up a bond like they did in Toronto, or how did that work?
Yeah. So when we looked at financing the building, one of the things that we did was we created London's first community bond. It was $1 million ask from the communities. We got half of it from a foundation, and the other half came from dozens of investors that came. We wanted to make the entry of that bond very doable for everyone. So it was $1,000 minimum entry for the bond, and we had it within 24 days of the campaign. And to date, we've been able to pay back the 3%. That was the term, 3%. What it did, while it surfaced great from a financial perspective, a 3% loan has helped us kind of scale our mortgage, but it also provided an incredible opportunity for people to come in and participate in a building with an investment. And one of the comments we've heard from that is, it's the first investment I've made where I can actually drive by. So, it's been a great success that way.
So you had the bond for the down payment, or was it, and then a mortgage on the building, or how was it structured?
We've had a bond, we've had a mortgage, and we've also had private investors and sponsorship. So we try to move every angle and every opportunity to have people participate. So even stuff like naming opportunities, we have a lot of our rooms are, some of our partners like High Street Hive or, the TD Think Tank, or so it was a multi-pronged approach to fund the building.
So yeah, a lot of community engagement in that, in structuring this. And how did you guys go about the campaign? Was it so compelling that everybody wanted to get involved, or how did you go about it?
Marketing. I think Pillar Nonprofit Network certainly has brand recognition in the community as a trusted, source of leadership and, and innovation. Like, we were one of the first in the community to actually start coaching social enterprises and pushing the envelope in terms of, turning for-profits and nonprofits into socially purposed business. So we had a big Pillar Nonprofit really came in with a strong brand, a strong connection to community. So when we said we've got this idea, it wasn't that, I shouldn't say it wasn't that challenging, because it was a lot of work, both from, setting it up from a legality perspective, but also to notice that we came from a trusted brand, from a trusted community connector already.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Pillar, what it is, and its history?
Pillar Nonprofit is an organization that brings together individuals, organizations, and including like the academic sector, the government, to anyone that has a key to a vibrant community, a vibrant and thriving community. And through things like professional development or capacity building for nonprofits, through we have an impact consulting arm, we have a social innovation arm. All of these areas come together to really foster those relationships, manage where we can, and really create an environment where we all have positive community impact. We know strongly that we can't exist on our own, that we need to certainly have all community members looking at the entire community. This is not just our city, it's everyone's city.
Mm.
It's
And
been around, it started as a volunteer organization with one person as a volunteer, and we've grown quite significantly now.
mm. And so we've talked about investors. Some of the people involved say they appreciate the fact they can drive by their investment, and there must be also the fact that those people are more interested in having a communal impact rather than return on their funds.
Oh, absolutely. Our report yearly to the bond reporters and to the investors is really, it's not just about the numbers. It's what we've done in terms of community impact. Storytelling is a big part of Pillar's impact measures. So we do things like the Pillar Community Innovation Awards once a year, where we host a large portion of people come to the community to watch 12 nominations of organizations that have done some incredible work. And when you come to that event, when you come to see the work that our community is doing, and the categories are compelling as well, everything from leadership to collaboration to innovation, it's remarkable to, you think what's going on in a community until you see something like that. You're like, oh, I didn't know the ukulele club, had 400 members and actually, work with older adult care and stuff like that. Like, it's the storytelling that really has become a big part of our measurement. And we're also, we started off with London. Now it's London and surrounding. We're doing work in the province. We're doing advocacy nationally. And it's paying off, because we see things slowly improving. Even nomenclature, even words like diversity and inclusion, they become part of governance. They become part of hiring processes. They become part of, community conversations that we host quite often. And diversity and inclusion is a very big part of our value.
Mm. So it's a shared office space. So you have tenants. Can you tell us about the tenant population you have?
Yeah, we have about 180 co-tenants in the building. We call them co-tenant members. It equates to about 380 individuals that come and go in the space. And everyone that is a co-tenant of Innovation Works is a member of the bigger Pillar membership of over 600 members that are a part of the membership. So it's really distinguishing people that need space and the network with the network as a whole. So we recently have kind of worked slowly to integrate the two networks, and it's become one network now. So some have space and some do not. People that rent space, when they fill out an application, one of the questions, the key question on the application form is, how do you want to change the world? So that's not something you would find at a typical office space that you're renting. If you have an eye towards community impact, it's probably a place you want to be. If you don't, you probably want your typical 9 to 5 office space, and that's not what we are. We're so much more of a community. The most popular words you hear around the space is, how can I help you? And it's everything from marketing teams to Canadian Cancer Society to bookkeeping services to mental health organizations to freelancers, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs. It's really an eclectic mix. Environmental organizations. It's really a potpourri of individuals that care deeply about our community, which is great, you know, and there's really no other place like that.
Yeah, so would you say that Innovation Works has a soul? And if so, how would you describe that soul?
Definitely. I think we recently did some video work with some of our co-tenants, and we asked them to describe it in one word, and they were very stumped in saying just one word, but some of the words that came out were like community and character and partnerships and collaboration. I think the glue really is that view to community impact. I think the soul that, you know, you might be referring to is that, you know, it's people feel deeply, and you know, yeah, there's always this sense that you're not alone. There's
And,
always someone to bounce something off of you. Just kind of cool.
so in any community, one of the challenges is community engagement. How do you engage your communities, the different members of your community? Is it around events?
Yeah, we work hard at that. So, you know, for the immediate community, we do a lot of, we call them community animation events. So everything from salad club to nonprofit meetups to networking events. But we also do a lot of work online where we've we've had now for a couple of years an online community where our members can talk to each other, where we don't have to be that funnel of information anymore. One of the example was when cannabis became legal. Some of the organizations asked the question to each other, how are you handling this in the workplace? What are some of the rules and regulations? So that conversation was going across the membership on our online community. We didn't have to be the funnel of that. So that was kind of cool. And it was the impetus to start this online community in a bigger way. So, you know, those kinds of things happen a lot and all the time. There's been examples where there have been requests for work from different organizations, and some of the contractors in our group or that are co-tenants or that are in the network, you know, don't feel that they have enough capacity or knowledge, but they might form a consortium of contractors to work on a particular community project. That's been very interesting to watch as well. So, you know, there's and I think the advocacy work that we've really stepped up with, particularly in this time of COVID-19, is been very interesting. And I think our network is responding really well. And also, we kind of act to curate those discussions. So our executive director has weekly roundtables with other executive directors, and it's been hugely helpful to, you know, bring people to a certain playing ground, but also to share. You know, sharing is a really reciprocated kind of activity that has benefited all.
Hmm. And so the space is called Innovation Works, and some say innovation happens when people collide. Have you been the witness of such collisions?
Yeah, very much so. So one of our tenants is the Project Management Institute of Ontario, PMI, Southwestern Ontario. And we've partnered with them to hold a networking event where some of their project managers are looking for hours to remain certified as a PM, for example, and they volunteer their time to nonprofits that need project managers. So we act as those kind of collisions, which has been really interesting, and even some jobs have popped up because of that. We've had an acrobatic yoga instructor who is world famous, working with circuses and whatnot. He was a co-tenant for a little while. He paired up with one of our executive coaches, and they held a workshop on trust. So you can imagine the physical aspects of trust when you're holding someone in the air, and then a coach, from a coaching perspective, what that means for someone to be physically feeling it. So that was a really cool connection. Also, we've had housing or corporations or affordable housing groups working side by side with the research center on poverty. And, you know, just the likelihood of them coming together, like literally sitting next to each other, has been hugely helpful for both of them. We've had environmental groups working together and having those conversations over Salad Club, like what does the biking, cycling community need and look like in our community, and the environmental groups coming together that way. Events that show up where they need help with marketing, they sit together and say, oh, I can help you with that, you know. So it's been remarkable to see, you know, someone needs a logo. They're like, anyone in the building can help me with create a logo. You know, I'm trying to hire someone, and I know people are in here. So it's small and big. It's been remarkable to see those collisions.
And I know that Innovation Work wants to, and Pillar want to foster social enterprise. How do you go about that? And can you tell us about stories of social enterprise you've seen grow?
Sure. We've had, one of our sponsors for our social enterprise program is Libro. So Libro Credit Union sponsor, we have cohorts of 12 a year that come in, and we provide pretty in-depth coaching on business modeling, on social flourishing business models, marketing connections, communications, and budget connections to them. So we do a pretty in-depth incubator for social enterprises, and many of them have grown and you know, created incredible organizations. We have one that has launched. It's called Accents, and Kay has created an opportunity for immigrant women to sew pillows. And Kay is a stager. She stages homes. So she uses refurbished, end of the roll kind of fabrics, and engages these women to sew these pillows, and they put their story in the pillow. So it goes back to help foster jobs for these women. And that's just one of many. We've had like tech companies where they've gone and used created software to help determine AOD standards for websites, and his application was funded through the Accelerator program, and has done really well. Urban Roots was an environmental, kind of a farming thing where they create kind of like co-ops of farming, where they have a model where a third of their what they produce goes to individuals that otherwise can't afford fresh produce, for example. A third goes to market, and then a third goes to more subsidized kind of restaurants and whatnot. So great model, and they've done really, really well as well. So there's a lot of great learning, environment, tech, nonprofits that have really flourished with the social enterprise program.
Great. Where would you like to see the space go in the future?
You know, I think we're we are really, I think, doing a good job of pulling the walls down and really creating this environment of community. And we have very limited budget. So marketing is always such a hard thing to nail, because we were like, you know, how do you tell the story of how successful you can be and how you can thrive as individuals and organizations. So, you know, I believe our vision is around just creating that community in which people do not feel like they're alone, and that they have to, you know, create a business or an organization in a silo, but that showing the levels of collaboration and how they can serve our community and keep you, you know, thriving as a business and an organization. You know, I always say no money, no mission. Like you do need to create a revenue stream, but wouldn't it be incredible if your revenue stream also included, you know, the social lift as well? And so that's kind of what we're all about, is creating opportunities for innovation. So, you know, more of the network building. You know, of course we need a beautiful space. Of course we need a functional space. So that's in our business plan always. But really, how do you create those connections that are transformational? How do you take our knowledge and the leadership that we have in terms of advocacy? How do you take that and transform it into true systems changes where, you know, you move the needle, for example, on an inclusive economy? So, you know, we're not even talking about helping promote someone's business through marketing, but how do you make it an equitable and diverse population, where now we're talking about, you know, economies where it doesn't dictate who you are or who you need to be, but it actually provides purpose and pride in what you do. And so, you know, that's kind of the North Star that we're moving to, is this inclusive, diverse, transformational ingredients that gets us to really systematic change. Big one, very big one. That's a loaded answer for your little question.
Thank you. The space had to close down because of COVID-19. How did you adapt?
You know, like most online, some have been very successful, and we're trying some and some not so much. But, you know, it's just provided us a more voice to say, this is not about a building. This is about the community that you've bought into. So those have been incredible messages that we're able to really get to. You know, keeping people informed, keeping them engaged. And it's a lot of phone calls. It's a lot of check-ins. It's weekly communications, daily communications. You know, it can be a bit taxing on our staff. I'll be honest with you. It's not been easy because it's personal. And so, you know, it's when you're talking personal, you also need to know boundaries. And so sometimes, you know, if you're a person that like, tell me more, and want to get into someone's world and heart, it's also a withdrawal of your own energy. So we have to balance that. You know, personally, I think I've found that balance, but it's not easy for everyone to do that. But, you know, we've asked, you know, rent has been always an issue because we're not giving you access to a space anymore. So we've had some tremendous support where our tenants are saying we can still pay, and they're not even accessing the space. So I think that to me is a huge story, that they see the value in the space.
Can you touch on those meetings you've been organizing for the community?
Yeah, so Mondays we have nonprofit meetups, and they've been hugely successful. 20 to 30 nonprofits come in and talk everything from fundraising to volunteerism and the challenges that they're facing in the light of COVID. Tuesdays we do a social network. Not a lot of participation, but deep participation. So that's been a really interesting one to watch. Wednesday's Salad Club, not going over as well as we thought. And, it's just meant as a laid back kind of meeting. It was a lot more, it was better attended when it was live, I think, because people who doesn't like coming together with food, right? So we'll see what happens with that. Thursdays, we've always offered yoga for the community. We have instructors that sign up. They offer their time for free, and it's free community yoga. Those have been very popular and very well attended. And then Fridays, we offer a kind of a organizational continuity discussion with 10, 12 different people who join, and they've been pretty good, successful as well. So those have been our main ones. And then on Fridays as well, as I mentioned, our executive director runs an executive director call on Friday mornings.
Do you think in some respects the community grew stronger out of this
Yes.
hardship?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's obvious with, the caremonger groups that are out there for sure. And you can post on social media all the time. I also think that, like I said, there's people that show up on these community engagement calls that I haven't seen before in our face-to-face meetings. So it's appealing to a different kind of individual, maybe more of the introverted types that can kind of hide behind a camera, which is kind of weird because sometimes you're afraid of cameras. But yeah, that would be definitely, absolutely strong.
So will some of the programs you put together during COVID survive COVID? Do you see something
Yes,
happening?
I would suggest, particularly the ones that have been rocking it, like the nonprofit meetups and the ED network. And yeah, I don't know. I think one of the things we pride ourselves on is that we're not the ones coming up with this. This is by the tenants for the tenants. So if they want it to continue, it will continue. If they don't, it won't.
So shared office space is an evolution of office space. Do you have any thoughts on the future of office space? Not only for innovation works, but let's talk about innovation works. How will COVID affect you and your practice, your daily practice? And in a more general way, how do you think the offices will be affected?
Well, from a practical, physical perspective, we need to take into consideration health guidelines. So what that means in terms of ratio of people in a space at any given time is going to be dictated to us by a party that knows a lot better about disease than I do. So we're going to take our lead from there. And then in the future, we were talking, I was on a call earlier with other shared spaces, and they're talking about things like sitting shifts and, so like you would be a co-tenant that's a Monday co-tenant, someone that's a Tuesday co-tenant. So possibly looking at things like that, opening up other spaces within the space as co-working spaces. So maybe having some of our meeting rooms a little more able to be designated co-working spaces as well. The future, I think certainly the literature is pointing to that less and less organizations or businesses are looking at the potential for the option of a shared space as opposed to its own bricks and mortars, because there's a lot that has to happen, right? You're not only paying rent, sometimes you're paying for the amenities that you get in a shared working space, like Wi-Fi, cleaning services, that's absorbed in our cost and ultimately in rent. But some organizations, would fare well with, a built-in animation department in their organization. They don't have to worry about, oh, should we do a potluck or should we do, it's there. And it's there in a big way. So I think there's that. And, basic economies of scale. It's a lot cheaper to rent space out on a monthly basis than it is to run your own building. So we shall see. Is kind of, but so we are watching trends very closely to
How
accommodate what we need to.
how do you think you will be able to provide a communal experience when is it going to be challenging when people have to stay a certain distance from each other, you think?
Yeah, I actually mentioned this on our co-working call this morning, or the shared space call this morning. And, you know, we're 100 and some days into this now, and we kind of get it. We are experience rating what's happening to us now. So if you're walking down the street and someone's walking next or coming towards you, you know that someone has to move, right? So that was kind of weird and clunky at the beginning, and now it's just kind of common sense. That's what you got to do. I think we're going to have to experience rate people coming back into the space and what their level of fear and what mitigation strategies are in place, what risks they're willing to take. So we're going to have to experience rate it a little bit before we can really pursue a lot of those physical connection points. But again, we haven't had a space for 100 days plus, or probably less than that. Actually, it was mid-March for us. COVID's been around longer, but we haven't sensed any less community. So I think we will be looking at a hybrid approach of some sort. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Okay, so we've gone through all my questions. Is there anything you'd like to share about the space, or?
I've been a part of the introduction of Innovation Works, this shared space to London, since its inception, really. And what we started with and where we're at now, no one, I don't think anyone, any board of directors, any investor could have possibly imagined the thriving community that it has created. In a very good way. We've made mistakes, absolutely, but we're learning. And I think the power of the community is the power of the community. It's not us dictating what we think should happen. Having the openness to change and having the courage to say, you know what, it didn't work that way, so let's make it work for the way that it's supposed to. I think having that openness and having a place for brave conversations on stuff like diversity and inclusion and gender and everything else has really provided a color that we never expected, a kaleidoscope of colors that has been great, challenging, and incredibly informational. And I think, now more than ever, we can take that informational and bring it to transformational. How do we do that? So that's kind of where I think I would land on. That's what people need to know. He said it, be the change. That's us. That's all of us individually to be collectively.
And innovation work as the space for that change to happen?
Our tagline is connecting people, sparking impact. And that's what we live up to. We try to live up to.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's where I would say connecting people, sparking impact. Watch out.
Okay, well, thank you, Laurie, for inviting us into the world of Innovation Works and this beautiful shared office space here in London. And yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, and hope you can see it live soon.
Yes.